Welcome back to the Steel Forum. Today we're going to be adding anchor bolts and leveling plates to our model using some custom members and parametrics that are included with SDS 2. Let's get started. Okay, so we've got a couple of different base plate types here. We've got a couple that are 3/4 inch thick and some that are 1 inch thick, and they're in different configurations. So we want to make sure that we get our anchor bolts and leveling plates to all go in as quickly as possible. Now if you use the built-in anchor rod tool that SDS has, you're going to wind up getting an anchor bolt that you have to place in one hole and then copy and paste it into all the other locations that you want, and you're going to have to change elevations. There's a lot of input work there. But all I'm going to do is go ahead and run a couple of parametrics, and we're going to bang this out pretty quick. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run the leveling plate parametric, which tells me to select column members. So I'm just going to go ahead and swipe the whole model. It's only going to pick up the columns. Hit enter. I want 1/4 inch thick plates. Set your sequence if you want to change it, and if you want a shelf dimension, this is a place you can put that in. Otherwise, if you just want it to be exactly the same footprint as the base plate, it's just going to match that. Set your grade and hit OK. So what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and put in leveling plates at all of the column locations for you. Once that's done, I'm just going to go ahead and run the sag rods as anchor rods tool. So this gives me a couple different options. I can choose the specific material or the specific member that I want, or I can filter it down a little bit, pick all of the columns, and just tell it that the ones with BP1s are going to get this treatment. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and run it on all of them. Now I do have two different sizes of anchor bolts to be put into this job, 3/4 inch and 1 inch. It's going to run this parametric automatically twice. It'll run it the first time through for the 3/4 inch, and then the second pass through for the 1 inch. So generally when I do this, you want to be thinking about the embedment and then getting your other factors put in before you get to the total rod projection. So embedment is going to be the distance from the top of your footer or pier down to the very bottom of the anchor bolt. So sometimes when you're looking at contract drawings, they give you that embedment depth, but it's to the top of the plate washer, and then you've got another 1.5 inches or so to go to get to the bottom of the bolt. You're going to need to add on for that as needed. Now in this case, I'm only going to have 1 inch of grout, and you're going to want to also make sure that you're factoring in for your leveling plate. So in this case, I'm going to have 3/4 inch of grout and 1/4 inch of leveling plate, so I'm going to have 1 inch grout total. Then you want to get your minimum bolt projection above the base plate. So you need to calculate for your plate washer, for the nut height, and additional projection. Let's say 2.5 inches. Okay, now the nice thing about the rod projection above concrete is this is a calculated minimum. So if I go ahead and tell it 1 inch and hit tab, based on grout thickness, base plate thickness, and your minimum projection above the base plate, it'll come up with your minimum value here. Now if you don't want to use that, you can always go higher, but you can't go any lower. Now I can choose the rod type that I want. If I want straight with a hook, or if I even want a headed bolt. In this case, I'm going to stick with a straight. You can pick a different grade if you want. I do like to set my anchor bolts to F155436. In order to get this, you will have to set that as a grade in your round bar steel grades. 0.1 data, in this case, is going to be the bottom. I only want 3 inches of thread here. I want a single nut, and I want 1 washer. But in this case, I don't want a washer like you would find on a bolt. I want an actual plate washer. So I'm going to set washer to 0 because that only has to do with the bolt type washers. And I'm going to leave bearing plate washer set as yes. This is going to give me a plate material. I'm going to set my rod to engagement. Hook dimension is grayed out because I've selected a straight type. Then up at the top here, going to the 0.2 data, I'm going to be typing in my information for the top of the rod. Now I like to have my thread of projection be the same distance, so I'm going to make that one 4.5. I'm only going to have a single nut. Now you do have a double nut ability here. Just be aware of this. Double nut means 2 nuts stacked on each other, whereas if you set this to 2 for the nut quantity, you will get 1 nut on either side of your base plate, so that's how you generate a leveling nut. But since we're using leveling plates in this situation, we're going to leave that at 1 and leave this set to no. If I did need a double nut for a jam nut purpose, I could set that here. And again, I'm going to go ahead and put in a plate washer. So I'm going to leave the bearing plate washer in place. And now I'm going to switch on over to the nut and plate washer. Now this is a 3/4 inch bolt. So under my 0.2 plate, this is my bearing plate. I'm going to go ahead and set this 1/4 by 2 by 2, 1/4 by 2 by 2. You know what, in this case, because this is the bottom washer, let's say that they give me a little something different here and I have to use 3/8 by 3 by 3. All of this is ignored as far as the washer goes because we did not select any specific washers. We set these both to 0. Again, this would be where you fill out a leveling nut and a leveling washer. And that's it. We're going to go ahead and let that run. It's going to cycle through and put those in. And as soon as it's done with that, it's going to reload and give me my 1-inch diameter bolts. Okay, so 1-inch diameter bolt, I'm going to go ahead and make a couple of changes here. Let's say I need to go to 3 inches now. Oh, that's going to automatically bump me up to 5. Now let's say I also need to have an extra embed. It's going to go ahead and adjust everything. Now one thing you'll notice is it isn't asking you about elevations at this point. When you first run this tool, this is in a parametric format. This is not the actual custom member. This is a quick input in order to get these in. If I edit this afterwards, I will have elevations. It will be the true custom member. But for now, this is just a parametric that allows me to input this, and it looks a lot like that screen, but it's not quite the same thing. So you've got to be aware of that too. So in this case, because my projection has changed, I'm going to go ahead and change my thread. And I'm going to switch on over here. And now I need to use a bit of a bigger plate. And now let's say they give me 1/2 by 4 by 4 for the bottom plate. Go ahead and run that. And here you can see it's gone ahead and put these in perfectly for me. So the plate washers are right down flush onto the base plate. And everything is pretty much lined up the way it should be. And you'll also notice underneath each one of these columns, I've got a leveling plate already installed. Okay, now it looks like I've made a little bit of a mistake here. I haven't left sufficient rod to engagement underneath. I need to get this thread a little bit more extended down. So I'm going to go ahead and edit other, grab all 68 of these one particular type. Let's go ahead and give it another 1/2 inch. So what this is going to do is it's going to lower the bottom end by 1/2 inch, and then what I want to do is move up the nut and plate washer by that same 1/2 inch. So I'm going to turn that up from 1.5 inches to 2. Click OK, and now you should notice that everything just extends. And that's it. I'm ready to make my plans now. Anchor bolts are ready. So that's how we use custom members and parametrics to put in our anchor bolts and leveling plates. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. And as always, I'm Matt from the Steel Forum. We'll see you next time.